So then I want to continue talking about what is this quality that we don't have a perfect English word for, but that we most definitely do have. This isn't a Buddhist quality. It's not owned by anything. It's very much a human potential, just as much as you guys know what anger is. You know what sadness is. We know what these things are. We have metta just the same. Like we said, the Greeks call it agape. It's a perfect um, capture of the word. The it is Valentine's Day, right? Keep forgetting that. Happy Valentine's Day. Nice to be Valentines with you all. And it's a good to talk about because the distinction between this kind of love and romantic love, not to say that romantic love is bad or that other kinds of love are bad, but they're different. They are different expressions. Romantic love comes with desire for oneself or clinging. And what do we cling to as it's described in the word upadana, which means attachment or clinging, is we cling to things being pleasurable. So we love our romantic partners when they're giving us pleasure, and we can not like them when, they don't give us pleasure. We can. Or we cling to our ideas about people. So it's not about attaching to or not attaching to people themselves. It's about clinging to our ideas about them. So we want them to be like this, but they're showing up the way they're showing up. So that's the clinging that happens, the upadana, which leads to conflict and stress. And then hopefully there is within romantic relationships, and if it's not naturally showing up for anybody that is in a romantic relationship, it's something that you can cultivate, is loving kindness for your romantic partner. You want them to be well. You want them to be happy. And naturally that's there. And then these things can compete with each other. And they are mutually exclusive in a moment. We can go back and forth between um, wanting pleasure and then having loving kindness, but they don't happen at the same time. So loving kindness, translated as benevolence, goodwill, one of the four Brahma viharas. Brahma means highest. Vihara means abode, abiding, an abiding or a dwelling place. So giving ourselves this intensive time to practice this weekend so that we can abide in loving kindness, live in it, dwell in it. Brahma, highest, not from an authoritative place, not because the Buddha said this is the best thing for you to do, so you should do it, but because you can really feel it as a very powerful energy, very strong and lofty, I guess is one word. Uh, and it overrides the afflictive states in our mind and liberates the mind from them. So it's called a liberating quality. Each moment that your mind, clear mind, connects, may I be safe. Your mind is then liberated from hating yourself, self-doubt, judgment, judging others. In that moment, there's a liberating quality. And that moment is all you ever have to do. And then there's a new moment, and then you do that again. So there's a way that we can try to, and we do all the time, put efforts in our practice or put efforts in our life that are trying to control outcomes. My teacher pointed this out when I was on an intensive retreat one time. Said you put in the causes and let go of the effects. So that's the one job. The one job is, may I be safe, healthy, and happy. Next moment, same thing. The mind will wander, then coming back. That one job, may I be safe. Kind of put it down and let the effects of it happen. So this is very conserving of our energy. Trying to control outcomes is a waste of energy because it's trying to control what we don't have control over. Makes us kind of at odds with life and depletes our energy. Metta is very restoring of our energy. It's very healing. Much like the guy that studied water, the effects of words on water, the way it affects your molecules, metta, when you say these words, vibrates into your body, into the cells of your body, into your nervous system. So it soothes the nerves. The mind body relationship is something that's very visible with this kind of intensive practice. Because we get quiet, the mind gets concentrated. You can see a thought and then its effects on the body. And that's every thought. So there's something that is very beautiful, and I like to think of metta as really the force of the universe, even though it's hard to see in a world where there's so much violence, pain, afflictions, evil actions of people harming others. It can be hard to see, but because the universe existence sort of rewards, you can say, this beautiful quality and all wholesome qualities, the deepest essence of the universe, does bend towards goodness. So you can have that kind of faith that our job is to line up with that creative force of the universe where we care about the well-being, happiness, and peace of ourselves, which we do, and we care about the wellness, happiness, and peace of those around us. And yeah, the universe responds, the body responds to that. And the body also responds to anxiety and to worry, contracting the blood cells, having a negative effect on our organs. So in Burma, it's kind of well talked about and very much understood and not taken as theory because they've witnessed it so much that people heal themselves through meditation practice. Why is that? Because thoughts are consuming. We're consuming them. What are we consuming? That goes into our bodies. And so sustained thoughts, wholesome thoughts like mindfulness, concentration, and then you're doing a constant stream of feeding your body. So I haven't healed anything major, though I've known somebody who has. I had a friend that went into a retreat with rheumatoid arthritis in a wheelchair and came out walking afterwards. So that was the biggest one of somebody I knew. But there's this little pamphlet of Mahasi Sayadaw. It talks about tumors bursting and people curing cancer. And you don't go into the practice to do that, but this is just what happens. You'll see it manifest in intensive practice as your skin starts to get very clear or the whites of the eyes start to get very white and that's having effect on all of the organs and all of the nervous system. Your heart starts to beat more regularly. Your digestion starts to work more better too. So it's not something that we reflect on. It's not something doctors know a thing about, which is very unfortunate and limiting to the medical system as we know it here. In other forms of healing, they do know that your thoughts absolutely are going into your body. So it's an early insight in Vipassana practice, and it's an absolute law. It's not a theory, and you can see it for yourself. You'll see it in small ways if you just like say the thoughts of loving kindness, and you might feel an energy like release in your body. I always hear my brain going like adjusting. As soon as I start doing metta practice, there's something in the brain that starts going. But anyway, so it's constantly happening. It's every single thought. So our thoughts of self-hatred, our thoughts of fear, our thoughts of anger, they're all affecting us. So really lovely to have this container that will be supportive of you constantly increasing these thoughts. So let's remember how the Buddha said to practice this, which we will be doing today. So you don't have to do more. You still just have one job. Don't make this think of taking on more jobs. We have one job. But how do we do it? By familiarizing ourselves with metta. Quiet, closing the eyes, and then calling up metta, and then getting to know it. feeling it, becoming familiar, studying it really, right? Like a scientist, looking at it clearly. By cultivating it, by constantly increasing these thoughts. So if at any point today you have the thought, well, I did that already, that should be enough. The instructions are, okay, we're going to constantly increase and do it again and do it again and do it again and do it again. Each little thought is consequential. Each little thought is beneficial as something to be treasured, which the more you do the practice, you don't have to make yourself treasure it. The more you do it, the more you familiarize yourself with it, the more you feel it in your system, in your heart, and the benefit of it, then you will start to naturally treasure it. By putting these ideas into practice and establishing them, and then the way Tanusaro Bhikkhu says, by cultivating, developing, pursuing, handing the reins taken as bases, giving grounding, steady, consolidate, and well undertake. So handing the reins, there is this sense of surrender. Our mind is full of agendas. We wake up in the morning, we have an agenda. We're really surrendering all plans, all agendas. At this, which is the most essential, is that you're happy and that you're safe and that you're free from suffering. So we talked last night about this practice of what is translated as sense restraint, which often pulls people away. It doesn't inspire people. That's completely understandable, especially because of this word restrain and what it means in English. The word in Pali means to cover. And so in a container of intensive meditation practice, then we let ourselves quiet the senses and cover them. Senses is translated from a word called Indriya. Indriya was a god that was like a ruler, Indra. Indriya means that which rules us. So in this human realm, we're very much guided by what we perceive through the sense doors. And when we cover the senses, like a sensory deprivation tank, same thing, we tune into something deeper and different. So metta is not a sensory experience. So we want to abide the mind with this loving kindness. It's not a sensory experience. And then we concentrate the mind on that. Concentration is not a sensory experience. When you put your mind on an object, it's not a sensory experience. So we're always seeking through the senses. In Buddhism, they really go through, it's such a deep study of the psyche, the kinds of pleasure that are possible in our human experience. And one of the grossest or easiest or most apparent kinds of pleasure or happiness is that which we get through the senses, which when we look at are very, very fleeting. They change very quickly. You know, if you get somebody's rubbing your head, feels good. They did it for like 4 hours. It might stop being pleasing, right? Same with any kind of food. How long does it last? What is the nature of the sensory experiences? How long are we satisfied by a scrolling through the phone, by the dopamine fix, right? The dopamine hits. How long do they satisfy? It's not about good or bad or right or wrong. It's about seeing things as they are. How long do things satisfy? It's not bad. You will have sensory pleasure because you live. And then the Buddha analyzed these different kinds of pleasures that are possible for us that come through our spiritual practice that feel deeper and more peaceful. The happiness of knowing that you've helped somebody else, a kind of inner joy that comes after you gave a gift to somebody and that made them happy. Or the happiness of like seeing somebody who went through a hard time and made it out clear on the other side. The happiness of our sila practice, the happiness of meditation. Those are different kinds of happinesses that we can experience that are not as fleeting. They're still fleeting, but they're not as fleeting, and they're more satisfying. They're more conducive, unlike the sensory dopamine fix, which are addictive. We want more. They don't satisfy. We want more. These deeper happinesses are not that addictive. And the metta practice is done to the degree, restraining or covering the senses, going deeper into concentration practice can bring these deep spiritual states of bliss, euphoric bliss that is kind of beyond any kind of sensual experience that we have. And these are called jhana states. We won't be practicing for the purpose of that today, but once you start to tap into that, then the mind can see the very difference between these sensory experiences which rule this realm. They're the indras of this realm. It's normal. And it's normal for us to like withdraw, turn off the phones, take away the sense impressions, eat at only certain times. Not having the option to go to the refrigerator all the time, which is kind of a pain in our life that we have that, they're always available to us and we can always think about it. So it's a conducive thing. All of this restraint is not for the purpose of putting oneself in a straitjacket. It's not for the purpose of denying pleasure. It's for finding the deeper kinds of benefit and pleasure that comes from our spiritual practice that is much more gratifying, much more satisfying. So I would just want to make one note before we practice together about something that I find is inspiring people. And a person that comes to my class told me about this conversation. Do you guys know who David Goggins is? Yeah, okay. David Goggins and Andrew Huberman, who is like a neuroscientist. So my student showed me this conversation that they were having about this part of our brain that is called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. And Goggins is like ultra disciplined in his physical, like ultra super disciplined. The beautiful thing about the development of that, because this is a training, it is a practice. In Burma, they're very clear about that. The Western Dharma can be very hand-holdy. Just do it till you're comfortable. And that and then when you're not comfortable, change. They don't do that in Burma. They say, do it. Just do it and go through, go through, go through, whether you want to or whether you don't want to, whether you want to or whether you don't want to. So not from a rigid place, not from a self-hatred place, but from a compassionate place, because you have to get through the uncomfortable parts. Well, the conversation with Goggins and Huberman talked about a development of the brain region that happens when you do something that you don't want to do, that's called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. And it begins to strengthen and grow and get stronger when you don't want to do something, and only when you don't want to do something. So sometimes you meditate and you want to. You're not actually developing it then. It's when you don't want to and you do it anyways. That this area, as it gets bigger in people, starts to heal depression. It gives the will to live, actually. And what weakens it is giving into comfort, giving into, and we all do it. I've had to fight with depression um, my my whole life. I mean, it's weakened a lot from the years of my meditation practice, but it was a regularly occurring thing. And I could see that often it would come from actually just sinking into something that was comfortable, sinking into something that was comfortable, whether it's food or my bed or or a screen in front of it, just what's comfortable, what's comfortable. It's like you're weakening that side of the mind. But doing things, taking actions that are uncomfortable, not just for their discomfort, which the Goggins interview doesn't have the clarity about. The Buddha talked about is doing things not because they're pleasurable, but because they lead to benefit. So when we're doing our spiritual practice and when we're practicing metta, you can be sure, and you'll see eventually as a verified faith in your own experience, but lend yourself to faith in the beginning that it will be beneficial. So you might not want to do it, but we let go of what we want to do and do that which brings benefit, which brings benefit. And then each moment of doing that starts to strengthen this part of your brain, which brings benefit. And it brings benefit into all parts of your life. It will translate from your meditation cushion. And you do this already, right? Do you guys go to work? All right. So do you want to every time you're there? No. Or you exercise or you eat right or all of those choices you make for yourself, you are strengthening that already. But there can be something in our meditation practice where we think it's uncomfortable now. It must be wrong, or this is the time I want to back away from it. But discomfort will arise in your meditation practice. It's not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that you're going against the stream of the neural pathways, that your habits. And that's exactly where what my student called, and I've gotten my son excited about this idea, which is really good, uh, the sweet spot. So try to see it in that way, as when you're uncomfortable, when you don't want to practice, just do it anyways. Give it the reins. Doesn't matter if you want to or I found it very liberating to let go of do I want to or not within the meditation practice. Yeah. Doesn't matter if I want to. You will want to sometimes and you won't want to. The wanting mind is very, very fickle. It changes, and not giving it so much weight is so liberating for every aspect of your life. Okay. So let's practice together, and then we'll talk about, if you need to stand for a few minutes, go ahead to get the blood going. And I will just let you know exactly how long we're practicing. Okay, we'll get 2 minutes then for people to go. And then this first set will be like 35 minutes. There are various ways of practicing metta. We will work this weekend in a geographical way, where we have in the start so far. So ourselves, and then out to everyone here and all beings is what we'll do in the first few. And you'll notice that I spend a lot of time on yourself because, well, a few reasons. We do want to establish loving kindness for ourselves. Establish it. Kind of commit to it. This is the way I'm going to relate to myself now, with goodwill, with benevolence. And then also doing a single person helps to build the factor of concentration. So sometimes as we go outwards, you might start to see thinking increases. It's more complicated. It's hard to picture everyone here. So each time we go out, if you start to just feel too diffused, just come back to yourself. Buddhist psychology, the personification of greed, hatred, and delusion, or the negativity in our mind, is called Mara, which is really similar to how kind of Christian mystics think of these kind of visitors that come to the mind, corrupting our mind. It's true for every human being. And interestingly, in Thailand, they relate to this Mara as a representation of the forces of greed, hatred, and delusion in all of their relatives, right? So worries and fears and yeah, the self-hatred, the judging mind, all of those things that are called kilesas, which means afflictions or psychic irritants or defilements. Which one of those do you guys like? Psychic irritants, yeah. Everybody starts liking psychic irritants. When you come to see your mind as naturally luminous, and then that it's because of these visiting afflictions, kilesas, that we suffer, then defilements starts to resonate too, because you see the natural luminosity gets covered over by these maras, by these demons. So in Thailand, they are thought of as representations, and we put ourselves in this position for the purpose of them coming to the surface. So maybe we should have told you that on the description of the event listing. But that's why we do it, to bring all of that out to the surface. And it, like a detox, it's very, very useful to do that. And you'll see when you sit through all of that, the reactive patterns in your life will change. You know, people say you don't change, but people don't change because it's this hard to change. It's hard to go against the stream of our habits. The mind wants to do what it's habituated to do, even if those habits are creating suffering for us. Whatever is familiar will cling to and go on, even if those habits are creating suffering for us. So there's resistance that comes to making a change, even if that change is good for us. So Thailand, it's a representation. In Burma, they see Maras more as beings outside of yourself that come and visit your mind. And whatever resonates with you is completely fine. It was always the former first for me, but the latter has been at in different retreats where I was just really quiet, and then suddenly there's like a in my head. I'm like, what is that? Get out, go! I don't want you here, you know. And you can see, and then the next one, like, what are you? Who's that? Because it's not me. I don't want this. I don't want self-hatred. I don't want jealousy. I don't want craving, you know. I don't want any of that stuff. So who is that? So is it some non-human intelligence, some demon that's actually visiting our mind, some Mara, or is it just a psychic representation? I can't say I know for sure. I just know what it seems like. But in either case, it's good to relate to the negativity of your mind in that way, as not me, not myself, this I am not. And it isn't you because, and you do relate to it as you. And what happens when you relate to the negativity in your mind as you? What's that? You don't like yourself. Yeah. Self-condemnation, self-hatred, all of the things that pile up upon that. The second arrow, the third arrow, the fourth arrow, just keep arrowing ourselves with these painful afflictions. But the more you spend this time with restraining the senses, covering the senses, the sensory deprivation tank we've been in today, and then watch the mind, the less you identify with everything in the mind, but very particularly the negativity of the mind. You see, just as a visitor, not mine, not myself. I can feed it, or I can choose not to feed it. Yoniso and ayoniso manisakara are wise and unwise attention. So when we unwisely attend to the afflictions of our mind, that's when we're feeding them. When we stew over the things we don't like about ourselves, bring into focus things we don't like about other people, their negative qualities, then judgments, hatred, aversion, whatever it is that can arise in the mind. So we've been giving wise attention today to this beautiful and wholesome and always helpful quality of loving kindness. The wonderful thing about loving kindness is it never hurts. It doesn't lead to harm ever. It's so powerful that way. So it's something that you can take refuge in. So maybe as you were practicing, did you feel like agitated ever today or stressed or in pain in some way? Yeah. You know what didn't cause that? Do you know? Metta didn't cause it, yeah. So metta rested your mind from those states every time that you did it. And it's hard to see that. But once you do start to see it, then you keep wanting to go back to that place, back to that place. The mind gets tempted into these other places. And you see each time the mind clearly says the thoughts, there's just this strength, clarity. It like reverberates through the whole system in a kind of pleasure. And it's not stressful. It doesn't lead to harm. So this is what the Buddha called kusala, which is translated as wholesome, skillful, or beneficial. And he made a very clear distinction between wholesome states, kusala states, and unwholesome states. This word, wholesome and unwholesome, isn't a wonderful word for us because of its various English meanings, but it really does mean the inner forces that are onward leading, that are when we think them, when we speak them, when we act upon them, they lawfully lead to what the Buddha said, benefit and pleasure. And then the unwholesome are the forces inside of us that when we think them, speak upon them, or act upon them, then they lead to stress. And this is the spiritual path which we are all living, whether we choose to zone out from it or to completely face it. That's what this life is. Every part of your path, every relationship, your mother, your partners, your children, your work, every being you come into contact with is your spiritual path. And it's Groundhog's Day, so you get it right, or you're going to keep coming back, meeting the same annoying people and the same lessons over and over. We're here for mastery of this life. And when you really turn towards your life in that way, it doesn't matter what you do. There's a great teacher named Winnie Nazarko. I really love her. She's a teacher at IMS. Very like salt of the earth, kind of down to earth. She started a Dharma talk. I was at a casino in Reno, Nevada. I was like, yeah, the Dharma's there. It's there. It's in a casino in Reno, Nevada. It's wherever you are. And this is our life, our spiritual practice. So we either ignore it. This is what the Buddha said we do a lot in avoidance of zoning out. These devices we have are poisoned in this way. They've made that so much more easy for us to escape into something. It's bad to have that kind of easy escape, but it'll culminate, it'll lead to lots and lots and lots of suffering. And people will then, that suffering will then wake people up. Hopefully it is already. Hopefully we don't have to wait for the diagnosis before we start to do the spiritual practice. Yeah, obviously you guys don't need that. You're here now and you did it today. So it's so beautiful. And if you didn't get to a point of feeling the kind of what Michelle McDonald called the purification and the purity. So the purification is when everything comes to the surface and it just feels like yuck. The whole practice, like, why am I doing this? It's just yuck. But keep going. Think of the spiritual practice like a quest, like a walking journey quest, where you keep going straight and the landscape changes. And in that landscape, you're going down into swampy areas, dark areas, or the weather changes and there's storms and it's cold. What happens if you just stay still? You don't get out of the swamp, right? You just stay where it is. If when things get difficult for us on our spiritual journey, we stop, then we'll stay stuck in that place. So we don't want to, but if you keep going, you'll walk above the clouds. You'll get to places that are freer than you ever thought was possible, and that will give you a feeling that you've always wanted, a satiation that you've always been looking for, and places that maybe haven't provided it for you before. So there is a huge amount in the human psyche. It isn't Buddhist. It's not owned by Buddhism. It is our own pure potential. It's natural. Vipassana means seeing nature. The Buddhist system is not a dogma, not an ideology put on life. It is a path and a system that exposes life as it is, reality as it is. And that's all it is for. The Buddha said this very clearly when he said that would it be appropriate if you were to take a raft to get you to a safe place, an island over there that you saw, and that once you got to that island, you put the raft on your head and started walking around with it, carrying the raft with you. And the monk said, no, that's not the appropriate use of a raft. What do we do with the raft? We put it down. And so he compared his own teachings to a raft, the raft that gets you to the other shore, not to be clung to and not to be carried around with, not to identify with. Do you know that the Buddha in that time, there was a representation of him? It was just feet. It wasn't this. There's no ideology, no, worship involved at all. It's just a study, a scientific study of the human heart. And there is no better system that exposes the human heart that I've come across. If you know of one, you can tell me. But like I said, scientists don't know the truths of the reality about the consciousness. Why? They don't have instrumentation that can study it. There's no microscope. There's no telescope that can see into the human consciousness. It's what Matthieu Ricard said. You can only see consciousness in the first person, one's own. And when you study your own, you're studying ours. When you understand your own, you understand all of humanity's consciousness. What are these emotions? How do they come into be? What is the relationship of the mind and the body? It's not too far away, the reality of this. It's like right there. And we just don't tune into it to see it. So, but what we gain is wisdom. And by wisdom, we mean an understanding of the nature of reality, consciousness, suffering, and the end of suffering. That is universal truth. That's what the Four Noble Truths are. They're universal realities about the way things are, not to be bought or to believed, not to adopt as a belief system or to worship. What did the Buddha say? E ipasiko. Come and see for yourself. And he said, when you see for yourself that these things are worthy, these things are onward leading, then live and abide in them. Only when you see for yourself. Not when you believe a teacher, not because they seem like they know what they're talking about, not because it's been written in scripture, not because it's been handed down upon tradition, not upon surmise, not for all of these reasons. But when we see for ourselves, and how do we see for ourselves? Just by doing what we did today and really studying your own heart, taking the time to get quiet, let the attention get subtle. What is a pure enlightenment called? The hard to see, the state of nirvana or nibbana. It means it's here, it's just we can't see it. Freedom is here, we just can't see it. So as we let our attention, cover the senses, get more refined, then we see the hard to see. We see how our habits are arising, at what point do they arise, and how we can change them. So beautiful that you did that work today. So needed to go against this stream that's getting stronger of division. And the devices, the news is all intentionally, maybe with ignorantly, but intentionally creating division. Why? Because it makes money. Because it's addicting. It's addicting to be divided from each other. So this work is exactly going against that, going against that. And we have to do it harder now because the forces are coming on stronger and it's very dangerous. So you did it. You did it. Keep doing it. Keep on keeping on. Okay. We will do more tomorrow.